Wow, this is really amazing. And I just can't believe the chance that I found this. And it says here, if I can read properly, right? That says 2nd of October, 2025 there, look. That's this 22nd of... 2nd of October 2025. Today surely is the 1st of October 2025, Wednesday, right? So tomorrow, Thursday, the 2nd of October 2025. So it looks like Graham Moore is challenging fraud and mainstream party status quo. Latest update. The hearing date has been set for the 2nd of October 2025. So that was on May, wasn't it? I think it was on the 1st of May, that by-election. May, June, July, August, September. 1, 2, 3, 4 months ago. Wow, time's flown. January, February, March, April, May. So just after that by-election, I watched it, and this is when Nigel Farage turned up with the reform, the guy who funds reform, Yousaf. Was he called Yousaf? And Farage was there with his sunglasses on, his shades on, right, with that Sarah poaching, right, his reform candidate, and she won by like 6 votes or something, and the Labour votes just didn't turn out. They didn't turn out to vote Labour. Very, very, very few Labour people turned out to vote. Now, there were two things. There was the fact that there was a Michael Westwood petition going on against Labour, and it had got about 3 million signatures by that point, but the government weren't doing anything about it, so people weren't happy with Starmer and Labour at that point. And then there was also the fact that Mike Amesbury had punched someone out in the street in Frodsham, right? And so Labour voters just didn't turn out because of Mike Amesbury. Their MP had been expelled from the party, and he stood down, and he was getting prosecuted and all that from punching someone. And then there was the fact that Michael Westwood had got 3 million signatures against Labour, and Labour weren't doing anything about it. So the Labour voters didn't turn out for that by-election at all. So, and there was no change, significant, noticeable change in the Green Party voting or Lib Dem. So what happened then? Well, what happened is it was a Labour area, but the people who actually had an MP prior to that, Mike Amesbury, just didn't turn out to vote, right? So what happened is that the rest of the votes, the Conservative Party, those Conservative Party votes were actually split in half, right? The Conservative vote was split in half, and then half of them went to vote for reform, okay? And because half of the Conservatives went to vote for reform, and because the Labour voting was reduced dramatically because Labour didn't hardly turn out, what it did is it put reform neck and neck with Labour. So because Labour had dominated it previously, they didn't dominate it this time. And because they'd been dramatically reduced in turnout, and because the Tories basically were split in half, Reform won, but only just. So it was pretty much Labour and Reform neck and neck, right? And it was only by a couple of counts. So, like 1 or 2, or literally like with one hand, with the fingers you can count on one hand, what made the difference between who won, literally. So every vote literally would count. Now, the thing is that Farage turned up in person, and he was there, right? And he got his sunglasses on. He was with that Yusuf guy, the whole party funder. They got their new fancy, attractive woman, MP, Sarah Pochin, and it was all kind of like, to look professional. But the thing is, Nigel Farage, he's attaching himself to Sarah Pochin, right, as a celebrity. He's like, I'm Nigel Farage, here's Yusuf, this is our party and this is our candidate, right? And the attachment of Nigel Farage and reform obviously is what Sarah Pochin won on. If she had not stood for reform and represented the Reform Party and Nigel Farage, right? Like, that's who she stands for and what she stands for, right? The party and the policies. And Farage definitely is a caricature, right? Because Nigel Farage has been the whole driving force behind reform. And Tice and Lee Anderson have been on TV and that, right? Sarah Pochin needed that popularity. She needed the attachment of Farage and reform to win, because if she'd have just stood as an independent, Sarah Pochin, she would not have won. There's no doubt about that. If she was just just an independent person, Sarah Pochin, she won because she stood for the Reform Party, and the Reform Party's got its popularity because of the attachment of Nigel Farage, right? Now, if you understand that and know that psychologically, if you know what had been happening around the country, if you know what had been happening on all GB News and all the programmes and on the social media and everything like that, you would know that, right? Now, this is the main part where now it's probably going to be a little bit harder to prove this to the election court, but it would have been hell of a lot easier to prove it in the 2024 general election with Nigel Farage, but I hadn't clicked onto it at that point, and I wouldn't have been able to afford £5,000 to challenge it for sure. I've done a petition to the House of Lords and one to the House of Commons and put it all down on paper, right? A proper official petition. If they don't act on it, fair enough, right? If they're not going to do anything, then they're corrupt, right? Now, Farage went on GB News and they give him his own talk show, Talking Pints, and they were having all these guests on, right? So he's like, he's promoting, he's getting famous from it, and he's getting people to like him and familiar with him, right? In a household name. But also it's getting shown for free, right? Through YouTube Freeview, right? So people are getting it gifted. It's Nigel Farage and the programme are a free gift for your entertainment, right? But they're also having all these guests on, like Priti Patel, and all these football managers and all these very high profile people that all the football fans like and support and are familiar with. The list of guests that went on that show is extremely high politicians, and they're all rubbing shoulders with Farage. They're all like rubbing static on him, right? And saying, we like Farage, we like Nigel, he's a cuddly character, you can trust him, put your vote in him possibly even. And they're talking about politics, so they're warming the public up to him, right? And even the Tories are in there, I'm Priti Patel, you can trust Nigel, I'd go on his show, I'd talk to him, right? You could probably trust him with your vote and all this, right? That's the vibe. But it was completely and totally funded by GB News. Reform UK did not pay for that programme, and they did not claim any notional spending or, indirect. They did not admit that programme had, was helping them, right? They just did it. And, there's the studio, the sets, all the things that programme, all the extravagant backdrops, settings, all the things that cost money, right? To make the, it's like, it's like on a TV game show, where does all the money come from the TV game show set, right? It wasn't paid for by Reform. And Nigel was also even getting money himself given from the private programme himself. And I don't know if he probably used some of that money for his own campaign, I don't know, but it was privately funded, and there's no way, I do not think that he wrote down any notional spending or implied spending or anything for that programme, right? And it made him, it shot his popularity through the roof and helped to raise his profile. Now, I'm not saying that people didn't know who he was from when he was in the European Parliament. he has been on politics, you know, he's been knocking around, he had his own channel and things like that, but we're talking about private money, which helps make you very famous and popular on someone else's money, not on your political party money, right? That's what we're talking about. So once that got Farage elected, that boosted his election potential. It added his popularity, and the popularity is the element that it's an element which matters in an election, because without popularity you don't win, right? And I think that he should and could have been challenged for that 2024 general election, right? For talking pints, it should have been, and this what we've got in front of us now on this page. This what this English Constitution Party are doing here is what should have been done at the 2024 general election for not only Farage but Tice and Lee Anderson as well. Now, let me get this clear, right? I don't want you to think that I don't like Nigel Farage or Reform UK, right? I'm not opposed to the party. I'm not opposed to the party. I don't dislike Nigel Farage, right? Or Tice or Lee Anderson, like, you know, when it comes to, like, you know, the party and politics. But how they did it is they cheated. And it's not fair on, like, independent candidates who just stand in the election and haven't got a chance in winning, because even if they do get some sort of funding. Now, even the Green Party and the Lib Dems, they're not short of money. They've got funders, they've got some big investors, and they've got a lot of donations. They're not short of money. They're a proper political party. They've got headquarters, they run campaigns, they've been going for a long time. Why didn't they get massive boost spikes in voting, right? You know? Now, Reform did it through making use out of privately funded means, which is unlawful. And it's not just the policies. It's not just, you know, the plain on, oh, the English people want, you know, immigration sorted out or this or that. It isn't just the policies, you know. It's to do with the personal celebritism and popularity of Nigel Farage as a person, and anything that increases his popularity and therefore his party as well. Yes, they're going for policies which some of the English public support, but there's a lot of people who oppose those policies, right? But they've got a abnormal spike in following, right? Mainly due to GB News, right, and these programmes. Rees-Mogg as well, right? Rees-Mogg, it didn't work well for Rees-Mogg. This is a thing, it can go the wrong way, but you know, I don't think Rees-Mogg minded it went the wrong way, because then they can make the excuse that, oh no, you know, even if we do this, you know, it doesn't always help people. It could hinder them. But the law says anything which affects the election, right? So for Rees-Mogg, it affected it, but negatively, right? It's because he didn't get elected next time. So that's where I am with it. Now, I did report it to the police, and I reported it to the election. I reported to the election agent, and I posted a letter. I didn't actually speak to that Catherine Blakelock, but I contacted her. I also did speak to the Monster Raving Looney Party leader. I actually spoke to him, and I wrote to him, and I said, you know, something needs to be done about that by-election, right? I did try to contact Graham Moore. I never spoke to him in person. I never spoke to him on video or phone, but I did try and contact him by email and write to him, but he's not easy to get in contact with. But I did try to get messages. I don't know if Catherine Blakelock will have reached out to him or not, but I asked their party if they would do something, but then they had their party leader went on Resistance GB, right, with that Will guy. The next day or the day after I contacted him, their leader went on and talked about election cheating, right? So something happened there. Now, I kind of forgot about it then, and I did do the paper petition to the House of Lords complaining, and, you know, I'm trying to do e-petitions as well, but they keep getting rejected, and I've complained loads and loads to the election office in the High Court and to, like, the Chief Justice and people like that, although, I mean, it goes to the Chief Justice if you write to the House of Lords, but And then I kind of like forgot about it because I've been working on other things. I've been trying to sort out, the right to petition and, trying to help all these people who are getting arrested by learning about those rights and try and spread awareness of them. So that election issue, and the police wouldn't do anything. They had this investigator called Carl Davis, right, from Cheshire Police, and he wasn't going to do anything, right? Not through the police. Oh, yeah, and I've complained to the Electoral Commission. Yeah, I've complained to the Electoral Commission loads. And I did loads of complaints to the Electoral Commission in great detail, right? And then the Electoral Commission doesn't seem like they were going to do anything, and I've actually been doing a petition to the Scottish Parliament, but then they rejected it on a completely total excuse, which is just completely and total. They basically wanted me to resubmit it without hardly changing anything, effectively, right? They said that I hadn't. They tried to make out that I hadn't gone somewhere else first, but there is nowhere else to go to when it comes to the Scottish Parliament, because the Electoral Commission is under the Ombudsman, not under the Scottish Parliament anyway. So the Scottish Parliament are just basically trying to be awkward. So yeah, I pretty much done everything. I've been doing lots actually on the election issue, and I've been actually doing more and more election petitions on those legal clauses and trying to raise awareness that the fact that social media is actually an anomaly. Oh, and there's a lot of foreign interference as well. There's a lot of foreign overseas interference, and then they've got the election propaganda House of Lords debate as well. So I forgot. So for the last, I would say, maybe 4 weeks or something like that, I haven't really been concentrating on the election petition issue. But today, I was getting a bit frustrated because I can't really get in touch with anybody. I ring MPs quite a lot and leave phone messages. I don't know whether it amounts to anything or not, but it's not like I don't do anything. But today I was thought, I want to try and speak to some of these other campaign groups like mine, but obviously some of them are a lot more organised because I'm just by myself, right? So I thought I'd try ring Big Brother Watch, but they've only got like the media press number. A lot of these places will only have press contact. I really won't mind speaking to that Will from GB New Resistance GB, but I don't know. These people are very difficult to get hold of. I think a lot of them get in contact with each other and make connections when they go to events or when they're on site at London or so these protests and so forth. I speak to them by email, but you don't get much out of them. I think it's more about who you are and who you know, unless some people have just got the knack, right? Maybe I don't have the knack, I don't know. But I think it was actually Silky Carlo who answered the phone today. And, she wasn't up for a conversation. She was like, oh, this is the press number. And I'm like, I tried to speak, if you don't speak to these people about things, how can they learn anything? They're talking all the time. They go out in the street and interview people, and then they chat casually about this and that, about general issues. They'll go out, they'll interview people in the street. They won't just only talk about facial recognition. They'll have a casual conversation about facial recognition and all the rest of it. All the other things that are happening in with digital ID and online, and they'll have a general discussion about it, right? And that'll be fine. And then they'll go and have all these conference meetings and chat to people about it. They won't be like, they won't be absolutely completely, digital ID. It will include a little bit about the surrounding issues, right? But it's impossible to get in touch with them and just chat and talk to them, right? They don't have any phone numbers. No one wants to really provide much contact details now. It's getting very antisocial, I think, unless you can somehow, you've got to want to be like, you've got to want to be a celebrity, because then if it's like, oh, it's Will from, Resistance GB, or it's Russell Brand, and it's like, they're just straight on there, they'll send you a private plane to get you on or whatever. So it's getting very cliquey now. Unless you actually get out there and get to the events. But even then, I think at that Dover, there's that guy who's doing the Great National British Strike, and loads of people went to Dover Beach, and he was like stood around talking. Not everyone wasn't going up to him like forming a queue to get his autograph or anything like that. I think if people wanted to talk to him, they would be able to say hello. But sometimes conversations need to be had, and they're not getting had. So after today, I was getting like, I need to speak to someone about these rights because we need to get it sorted out. And then I was just thinking, who else is there to talk to about rights? And I'm like, that Graham Moore guy, he knows all about the Constitution and the rights. And that programme that he did with Will and Resistance GB was absolutely brilliant. It was a brilliant programme. I would have loved to have participated in it or been in the studio, although, I probably wouldn't have wanted to, be being interviewed, but I wouldn't have minded being there, so I could throw some questions in or something, or talk to him afterwards or whatever. It seems that it's very... People seem to only want to do Zoom meetings or interviews or speak to you on the phone if it's like official and they're going to put it on the program now, not just to communicate, right? If you can get to these events, I'm sure, after they've finished filming or behind the scenes, you can get to talk to people and get issues discussed. That's what is needed. But anyway, so Graham Moore, he popped into my head just earlier, and I'm like, I'll check out, what he's doing, what his website's doing, or if he's got any more updated contacts. And then it went onto this website, English Constitution Party, and then the first page that popped up is this. And it just happened to be that it's the 1st of October today, and it says that election petition for Runcorn and Helsby, right? So he updated this on the 9th of May. So that's quite. So this was, he updated this on the 9th of May. So that's quite a while ago. Runcorn has a by-election. So he's challenging it for fraud by the looks of it, and there's a hearing set for the 2nd of October. So he challenged it. He put a challenge in straight away for it. So he must have been onto it straight away. So this is, so after all that, there's actually going to be, look, it says 2 High Court judges will come to Runcorn and Helsby. So according to this, 2 High Court judges on the 2nd of October 2025, that's tomorrow, are going to be they're going to basically challenge the election of Sarah Poachin, by the look of it. And I hope they win. I don't know what evidence is going to be included in it, but it will have cost them £5,000 deposit to get that. I don't know if that Catherine Blakelock contacted Graham Moore. I don't know if the Monster Raven Looney Party guy contacted them. I don't know if Graham Moore just did it of his own volition by himself. I'm not sure, but I would love to be able to give some evidence in this trial and submit some material in it. But I don't. It doesn't look like they might be challenging it on the popularity of Sarah Poachin and reform. It looks like they're just challenging it on fraud, general fraud, by the looks of it. But that's definitely interesting. So, I mean, that will be something to find out what happens then. I mean, if they win, then that will be some news. If Sarah Poachin her seats challenged and they have to have another election again, that will be something. Or I don't know whether they redo it. I don't think that they redo it. I think if they found out that if there was some fraud, I think that the person who got the next highest amount of votes might win. Might be declared the winner and their seat. You might be able to do it so they redo the whole election and they have to rehave the by-election again. But I think you've got to prove widespread corruption and fraud, not just the cheating of one person. If they proved that Sarah Putchin's popularity was unfairly advantaged, then they would just decide that she did not win, I think, and she would have been disqualified. And I think they might have said that the person who got the second most amount of votes might win, which could have been, it might have been the Conservative candidate, I'm not sure. But it looks like he might be going to try and get the whole thing divided then if he's going for fraud. But we'll see what happens. So, that'll be really interesting. I'm glad that someone's done something about it anyway. So, yeah, election petitions are actually really rare now because no one can afford it. I said to the Monster Raven Looney Party, I said, I'm like, you're doing all these by-elections. Like, by-elections are a really peculiar, odd, rare thing. Not many people know about them or do them. And you're, in political parties. And it's like, you would have thought that the Monster Raven Looney Party would do lots of election petitions just because they're a really extremely rare niche thing that is odd and peculiar that not anyone knows about or engages in very often, a very rare area of law, right? Like by-elections. You'd have thought the Monster Raven Looney Party would do election petitions just like, because they do by-elections for fun, right? They don't ever intend to win or expect to win. They do it purely for fun, for a laugh, right? For entertainment. So you would have thought that they might try and get their members to donate money to do election petitions kind of like for fun and to challenge elections, because it's just like it would be a loony thing to do, So, yeah. So this is really cool. I just found this, and it's here, and it's tomorrow. But he must have been straight in there with that. The 9th. I wonder when I put my first complaint in. Oh, you've got to do it within 14 days, right? So I had already got loads of things together and information, and started contacting the election agent and the police and various sort of groups well within those 14 days, right? So it will have been around the time that Graham was doing it, but I didn't actually manage to. Well, I actually did contact him. I did message him, but I didn't get to speak to him, and I didn't reply to me. So whether or not he took on board what I'd sent him, I don't know whether he's going to use any of that or not. But I did try to make contact with him. So whether or not he just took it on board and whatever, added it to his own stuff, or whether he's doing his own challenge, is purely his own challenge. I don't know, but we're going to find out. So, that's just, I'm just kind of like, it was really cool that it's tomorrow, and I just happened to find it today. I might not have never noticed it. Maybe I should have noticed it back then, but I must have checked his web. I definitely must have checked the last time I looked at his Constitution Party website, it must have just been before then. I reckon it would have been between the 1st of May when the election was and about the 7th, which was within the first week. Because by the time you get to the 14th, you've run out of time, right? So he was doing something then. So here we are. I think this is great. Wouldn't it be fantastic if he wins?